Ladies and gents, UX, and this is what you need to know about the air war between India and Pakistan by channel Sandboxx. Yes, it's a Sandboxx video about Indian war, India and Pakistan war. Yeah, I already made 2 3 videos when this shit was happening. Ceasefire was announced about 48 hours ago, 36, 48 hours ago. So that's at least something, right? Nobody wants war. That shit was insane, right? Of course, like yeah, probably nothing's gonna happen, right? Probably there will be no nuclear war, probably. But this is the first time a nuclear power went to war. Like you really need to understand like what this war was, right? In a lot of elements, right? I'm not trying to jab at somebody or anything, but this was a massive war in a way. Yes, Pakistan's economy is like 42nd in the world. Yes, Pakistan's military is 12th in the world. There's not much of comparison between India and Pakistan in that way. But Pakistan, because of China, is modern military, right? And they have nukes, right? They have navy, they have air force, they have army. That's a modern, because of India, in order to counter India, China has constantly provided Pakistan with a lot of shit. So this is a modern military with a nuclear weapon. This is the first time it happened. Now, technically, it didn't happen because this wasn't technically a war. War didn't happen, right? It almost happened before ceasefire was announced because right now it was like back and forth attacks. That's all that was. So technically, it didn't happen. But if it did kick off, it did like, okay, full frontal assault from both sides. It would have been a war. So, yes, Ukraine-Russia thing was a big news because it's a proper invasion. But Ukraine doesn't have navy or something like that. Like Ukraine is not a military like how Pakistan and India is, and Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons. So this would have been completely different. So I'm glad that shit didn't happen. So that was something. But yeah, the one thing that really surprised me about this war is like the amount of Chinese bots. Like I don't know why China cares so much, right? If you see anywhere like Pakistani bots or people constantly spreading insane amount of misinformation, or 70% was of India's electric grid was shot down. Like that can happen. Oh, cyber attack. Really, cyber attacks gonna take out 70% of Indian grid? What do you think? India is cyberpunk? Everything's connected that way. So that shit was next level. Like really. And when you really think about it, you realize that's not a Pakistani bots. Pakistan doesn't have that kind of resources. It's Chinese bots. Whenever I make China video, look at my comments. Like Chinese bots flood that section, and they all have Indian names. It's like, okay, why do you have such a thin skin? $20 trillion economy. You're flying there with USA. Everybody else is lagging behind. Why do you have such a thin skin? Why do you care so much? And only shit that came out of this war is, oh, Rafales was shot down. Which even I said, like, probably happened. And yeah, I saw the Enforcer, stream as well. Like, Enforcer, like, oh, both sides are same. India's lying as well. Dude, you can't watch an Indian news channel which just wants click. It's like watching Alex Jones news and saying, like, oh, America's lying. You're watching certain news channels saying like, oh, India is lying. Indian officials never denied or confirmed their Rafales were shot down. In a recent interview, they said like, doesn't matter, like pilots are safe, doesn't matter if Rafales were shot down. They didn't deny it, right? India doesn't lie. India is not a terrorist state. It has to lie. It's the largest democracy in the world. India doesn't lie like that, right? Every people who are in power are going to get replaced. That's how democracy works. They don't have skin in the game to like lie at that level. There's difference between nationalism and patriotism. They're not going to lie like that, right? And like I said in the previous videos, yeah, Rafale shot down because Indian Air Force was in specific orders not to touch Pakistani Air Force, military or anything, right? Just to attack certain installations. So Pakistan fought back. Yeah, India's Rafales got shot down. Any plane would. India didn't use like Rudra anti-radiation missiles for radars. India didn't try to take out a lot of things. India didn't have the, okay, if anybody even come close, took them down. They didn't have that kind of like orders. So yeah, Rafales got shot down. So what? If proper war break down, and if like air dominance war started with air forces, then you would have seen like what happened shit, right? People are like, oh, Rafale. First of all, people are blaming like Indian pilots. They are not experienced. Really? Indian pilots do like simulation style training exercises with European and American, Air Force all the time. Nobody ever reported, oh, Indian pilots don't know shit or something. Oh, Rafales are not good. Really? It's probably one of the best planes on the planet. Constantly shown to be one of the best planes on the planet. Like, oh, Chinese plane shot down. Okay, Chinese defenses didn't work. And somehow Chinese planes shot down Rafale because they're better. All right. I'm not trying to knock down China, right? I think only reason Chinese defense didn't work out because Pakistan doesn't have any money and they couldn't maintain it. That's the only reason. And also, like, oh, all the misinformation was insane. People show, like, Ukraine videos and show, like, oh, look at this, India was struck down. and enforce and everybody showed it like, oh, this is the video came out. Like, wait for it to be confirmed or debunked. Instantly got debunked in few hours later. Like, oh, this is from 2023. This is from 2022. This is 8 months ago from Ukraine. None of that from India. People say, oh, this like in the latest attack. Oh, these cities were like attacked. Right? People don't comment to me, I hope you're safe. People, I have relatives in US and everywhere. They're like, oh, I hope you're safe. There is nothing here. No, nobody even talks about war. Do you understand like the level of shit is happening? I'll go to gym, nobody even talks about war. That's the shit happening here. Right? I have a project in Bhuj, one of the attack site near, border. I was there when supposed attacks were happening. I was hearing distant sounds of anti-air, things working. It wasn't even near Bhuj. And people say, oh, Bhuj was struck. Where? I didn't hear shit. Right? I didn't see shit. So the level of Pakistan's only plus point was they just made shit up. Like, oh, this thing is happening. So yeah, we won. Okay, your ego is up now. You can tell your people like, oh, we struck too. Is that the reason? Fine, do that. I don't care. But like, don't lie to yourself. Like that shit didn't, like your defenses didn't work. Basic drones got through and blew up all your like airports and God knows what. Right? In the latest attack, some of the drones, very few of them got through in Jammu and Kashmir, all the way there. Right? 99% were intercepted. Before that, all of them were intercepted. People say, oh, how is that possible? I'll tell you how is that possible. We have S-400. We have domestically made Akash system. We have domestically made Prithvi system. And not to mention, there's another third system made together with French systems. Right? It's joint venture. We have 4 separate systems working in this border. And when you really see Pakistan and India border, it's not that big. Right? At the American scale, at the, like Russia-Ukraine scale, like it's not that big border. India can defend that. India have that many domestically made systems. And domestic system, the plus point is we can make it much cheaper. India and everything you can buy in India, you can make in India, is nearly 60 to 70 times cheaper than it's in America. Right? That's how domestic things work. That's how domestic labor works. Right? That's the disparity between currency. So even if we spend like 10 billion, that's equivalent to like 200-300 billion in a defense, in domestically made things. Only when we purchase something from outside, that's where the money matters. So I don't know, the misinformation in this war was insanity, right? But one thing I didn't like how people were just pointing out, oh, India and Pakistan both are lying. Indian military never lied. You should always look for officials, not some channel made by some guy who want to make money because he wants clickbait things. This is a democracy. People can do anything. Government can stop them. That's the one thing I didn't like about Enforcer. Like, oh, he's trying to make sure that Pakistanis don't get angry at him. So he's like, oh, both sides are shit. Like, come on, like, grow some spine. That's insane. Right, let's do this one.
According to credible reports, the unfolding conflict between India and Pakistan saw intense air-to-air combat on Wednesday night, with Pakistan's Chinese-sourced J-10 fighters reportedly shooting down at least one of India's French-sourced Dassault Rafale 4th-generation fighter jets, and maybe even more. This amounts to the first ever recorded combat loss of a Rafale, and there's mounting evidence to suggest that it
wasn't combat though. They shot the missile inside Indian territory and went back. And while going back, they were attacked and couldn't shake off the missiles. Right? They didn't try to take out defense. They didn't try to blind them before attacking. So even in the air war, they can have an edge. They didn't even know like there's going to be any backfire or something. They just assumed like, okay, we're going to shoot down and come back. Maybe they'll try to chase us or something. They didn't know the response would be instant because it was 2 weeks since Pakistanis were preparing, if you remember. Before all this shit happened, they were already like massing with tanks and everything at the border. They knew this shit was coming. Doing special operation times like that, right? Surgical operation times like that is already too hard. So this was very special scenario where shit happens, right? You really have to see the nuance behind it. You can just say, oh, Rafale was shot down. You see that Top Gun level of like dogfighting in the skies and oh, Rafale shot down. That wasn't the case. There was no fight. It was one-sided. India did the attack, went back, and they shot the missile, and Rafale also shot down. That's what happened. They weren't trying to fight each other.
Was not alone. Pakistani officials claim their forces shot down at least 5 Indian fighters on Wednesday night, including 3 Rafales, 1 Su-30, a MiG-29, and at least 1 large Heron drone. Thus far, Indian officials have not confirmed any of these losses, though photographs taken at the scene of one of the crashes seems to confirm the loss of at least one Rafale, and 2 American officials have confirmed that at least
It's Rafale, right? Rafale. I don't know.
2 Indian fighters were indeed shot down by Pakistan's J-10s. This fight may, unfortunately, be just beginning, but the very real combat taking place in South Asia is already running in parallel to the digital warfare of armchair generals and OSINT analysts alike, trying to figure out what the images, video clips, and claims flooding
Man, I love sandboxx, right? I was disappointed with the enforcer's take, but I love sandboxx, right? Everything he's saying is just hitting the mark.
social media might mean, not just in hopes of divining the outcome of this conflict, but to assess just how effective or ineffective advanced Western fighters like the Rafale may be when squaring off against some of China's finest wares. But can we really use what we've seen so far to draw any conclusions?
Exactly.
Let's try to find out. I'm
wasn't a
Alex
fight.
Hollings, and this is Air Power. I had an awesome episode of Air Power scheduled to drop today featuring my interviews with 2 different F-22 Raptor pilots, but conflict rarely respects a well-organized schedule, and I decided to push that video to next week so we could talk about what's going on between India and Pakistan, but also what's going on between all of us out here in the digital wilderness of 2025. Now, the crisis unfolding in South Asia this week actually began with a terror attack last month that saw a group of at least 4 gunmen kill 26 tourists in India-controlled Kashmir. India says they have credible evidence of Pakistan's direct support of these terror groups, a charge that Pakistani officials obviously deny.
UN have evidence against all the places that were stricken down by India. UN has evidence that the officially listed terrorist, that's the leader of Lashkar-e-Taiba, that is like US and UN has officially put him on the list. Oh, this is a terrorist guy. They have, these are the sites where it's working. So it's not just India. UN knows it. USA knows it. UN knows the USA knows kind of the same thing. That's where it comes from. So USA knows this, right? So, and those were the sites that India struck. India could have struck more sites that India thinks and knows where shit is happening, but India choose to strike just these sites because even UN and US knows that these were the sites. So there is no global backlash because people know how to spin it, which it happened with all the misinformation and shit. So India kind of saw this coming, like, we can't strike more than these things alone.
9. This is just the latest spark in a long-burning conflict between these nations that extends all the way back to 1947 when both states gained their independence from the British Empire. Since then, border disputes, particularly surrounding the territory of Kashmir, have erupted into open war on 4 separate occasions, with the first occurring just months after these nations gained independence. Today, it has been more than 25 years since open war broke out between India and Pakistan.
Yeah, okay, I'm pausing too much, but like I have to get through this chess, otherwise I won't sleep, I guess. All right, here's the reality. The way the partitions were happened was to ask princely states and the princes or whatever kings, princes, where do you want to go? And that's how it happened. That was the rule. Kashmir's prince said, oh, because of Pakistan's aggression, by the way, Kashmir's prince said, oh, I'm going to go with India because Pakistan didn't wait around to see what happens and they just tried to like aggressively attack somewhat. So Kashmir's prince panicked and like, okay, I'm going with India. Even there, Pakistan shit the bed. So there you go, Kashmir belongs to India. But they're like, oh no, it's mostly Muslim. So, mostly Florida is Spanish. Should America give it to Mexico or something? Should America give back Texas? Right? Like, there are 200 million Muslims in India. Okay, let's pick out where the places are and let's create mini Pakistans. What is your point? Okay, I understand, like, because of this weird, fucked up religious war, partisans happened, right? But Kashmir and Kashmir's prince and the people behind it voted to stay with India. If people didn't care about it, riots are already happening. People would have created an insane riot, right? Killed the prince and stormed his castle and said, like, oh, we're going with Pakistan. Nobody did that shit. And yet, oh, they're still fighting to this day. And they can't fight directly, so they're doing this terrorist shit. because they can't fight directly to India. Even when India was weak, they couldn't win. They're not going to win now. Like India's like went way up ahead. It's top 5 now. Pakistan is not even like top 10.
But they've exchanged airstrikes as recently as 2019. According to credible reporting, India's retaliatory strikes began under cover of darkness at around 1:28 a.m. local time, punctuated with a post on Twitter from the Indian Army that, once translated, reads, "Ready to strike."
Yeah, that's not Hindi, by the way. That's Sanskrit, oldest language. Yeah, that's more like a, in a way, officiality. I don't know how to say that. Like it's a language. When you speak, it's like has like certain pride behind it. It's like it's some officiality behind it.
Trained to win. Among other platforms, at least one, but likely several Indian Rafale fighters crossed the border into Pakistan carrying French-sourced Scalp cruise missiles.
They didn't cross the border, man. I guess this video is 2 days older. They didn't cross the border. They did it from inside the border. They made sure that like they doesn't cross the border and doesn't like have the excuse like, oh, Indian fighters cross the border. They made sure not to cross the border.
And AASM hammers, which are rocket-propelled glide bombs. At least one of these fighters was a single-seat EH model, but others may have been two-seat DH models. India currently has 28 single-seat Rafale EHs and only 8 two-seat DH model fighters, which are usually used for training, but that backseater is also sometimes employed for complex air-to-ground operations like those carried out on Wednesday night. The Rafale is a twin-engine, fourth-generation multi-role fighter that made its first flight all the way back in 1986, but saw its entry into active service delayed by budgetary constraints until 2001. India's 35 or so operational Rafales, however, are newer jets, built to what France refers to as the F3R standard, which emerged in the early 2000s and represents a significant technological overhaul of the platform, including the integration of more modern weapon systems like the aforementioned AASM Hammer and the Meteor long-range air-to-air missile, an upgraded cockpit and pilot interface, and a bunch more. These Indian fighters then saw an additional dozen or so modifications, including an improved dash helmet-mounted display and modified radar software meant to be tailored to India's specific defensive needs.
Yeah, the translation of that is they were like more tuned towards Himalayas. Still remember when the acquisition happened, there was like the whole brief out there. Like they were more tuned to Himalayas and mountainous areas than more than anything because of China. India bought this for China because you can never know when China's going to say fuck it because China's that powerful. China-Pakistan disparity between is insane. Like China is that powerful. So India bought this because, oh, we can't like really fight China with Su-30s and shit like that. Su-30s Mark 1s are great, but yeah, we need something better from the West, right? So they bought Rafales, right? They didn't, like India didn't have option to buy anything from US because, yeah, US won't sell. So only thing was left were European. So Rafale, Gripen or something like that. So I'm guessing they went with Rafales because there's a good relation with France. And people need to realize this is not just, Rafale thing. The relation between France and India is insanely big. Like I said, like our anti-defense systems were French and India joint ventured, a lot of them. Something is still at work, which is like, another version of Prithvi system, version 2 or something. Which is there to like ICBM like defense system that can intercept things up to Mark 30 or more, right? There's already Prithvi system that intercept ICBM, so there's like more advanced with France, right? So we have France guided bombs and things like that. This scalps and hammers and shit. So there's a lot of people have this misconception like, oh, we only have Russian things. No, 30% of things we have is Russian, right? Others are France and domestically made. It's like Israeli drones. So like we buy shit from everywhere, right? We also have Apache helicopters from USA for Himalaya. So it's different. People still have that misconception like we only have Russian things, like how Pakistan only have Chinese things. Pakistan, most of the 80% of things is from China, right? And that's kind of fucked up thing because all your enemy have to do is realize how Chinese things work. Tune it to that, and there you go. Most of your things are useless now. When you're diverse things, your enemy can't just prepare for it.
Now, India's most recent delivery of these Rafales was pretty recent, in 2022. Now, Wednesday night, these aircraft carried out strikes against at least 9 targets inside Pakistani territory that Indian officials described as terrorist infrastructure, emphasizing that they did not target any Pakistani military facilities or equipment. According to Pakistani officials, however, at least one of those missiles hit a mosque during that operation.
That mosque, why can't I say it right? That mosque was the target. Like I said, all of this is not India says it. UN and US has this register like these strikes are for this Lashkar-e-Taiba, training grounds. They know it, let alone India. India knows even more sites. Raw's budget isn't going to just like chilling and watching Netflix, right? Raw has been up, like most of the Raw's budgets goes against Pakistan and what's happening there, right? Do you think it's easy to be the border against terrorism? There is no terror camps inside India. Entire Pakistan is terror camp. Do you think they're not trying to get into India just to fuck with India? Raw and military is making sure that never happens. There's no hard wall against India and Pakistan. Some places just based like Thar desert in Gujarat in Pakistan and Rajasthan in Pakistan between them. They don't have some hard like borders or shit. People can literally walk in if they want to, right? It's constantly under guard. So they don't know a lot of shit that's happening there, but they only struck the shit that UN and US both knew that this were the sites. So they can like have backlash. Why did you do that? Show us evidence. So you already have evidence.
And at least 31 people were killed, including some children, in these airstrikes. By 1:51 a.m., just 23 minutes.
And that says more about the people, this organization, than the Indian military, right? They deliberately do that shit so opposition doesn't attack, right? Oh, it's a mosque. Oh, there are like going to be children here. There's going to be like civilians here, and they hide there, right? You see the same shit in Hamas, in Gaza and things.
Later, the Indian Army took to social media again, this time to announce the operation's completion, it seemed, declaring justice is served. But it was amid these strikes, which the Indian military has dubbed Operation Sindoor, that a disputed number of Indian military aircraft were shot down. Now, India has not acknowledged any losses, while Pakistan has claimed to have downed 3 Rafales, a MiG-29, a Su-30, and at least 1 large Heron drone.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even to this day, India hasn't given numbers or something, because I'm guessing France and India is trying to do this investigation, what went wrong type of shit, even though, like I said, there's nothing much went wrong. It wasn't a direct fight. Right, if Pakistan attacked back, India wasn't trying to attack Pakistan and shit happened. Like this is not a 1v1 fight, right? So that's why they didn't give details. It will emerge in the future. In the recent press thing, they just said like doesn't matter what was shot down. All pilots were home safe, and that's where they lived. They could have said no, fall shot down. And in the future, like backtrack that like Pakistan does every single time, point blank lies, and they just say oh you have evidence. Oh okay. Indian military doesn't do that. It's the largest democracy, 5th economy. It's going to be 4th soon. India doesn't do that shit, right? So, again, it always pisses me off like, oh, India and Pakistan both are lying. Indian military never lied. Indian government never lied. Don't talk about some news channel who's trying to make buck. If Alex Jones lies, I'm not going to say like entire America's lying.
All that night. India, of course, has denied these claims, but not long after, images of Rafale debris began to surface on social media, including an intact vertical stabilizer adorned with the serial number BS-1001, which is known to be associated with an Indian single-seat Rafale EH. Now, American officials, speaking under the condition of anonymity, have since confirmed with Reuters that at least 2 Indian fighters were indeed shot down, seemingly both by Pakistan's J-10CEs. Like the Rafale, Pakistan's Chinese-sourced J-10CEs are 4th-generation fighters that were updated to the modern standard. The J-10 is a single-engine multi-role fighter that...
Yeah, I don't know about Reuters. I don't know if it was Reuters or not. I think it was Reuters who also like claimed a lot of shit that Pakistan was just saying, which later turned out to be untrue. Image of like Ukraine drone being shot down. Oh, Pakistan shot down Indian drones. They just put it out there. 2 days later, wait a minute, this was in Ukraine. So like, Reuters, chill the fuck out. First, secure the footage. Like, is this true or not? Right? Even like, I don't know, I think it was CNN. Like, great, awesome CNN. Literally asked an Indian, oh, this is like Hindu and Muslim war. Okay, Pakistan came into India, did the terrorist attack. India is attacking Pakistan. Where does Pakistan is trying to do this religion war, not India. India is not saying anything about religion. 200 million Muslims are in India, proud to be Indian. Pakistan is making this religious war, not India. And India is a country fighting against another country because they're doing terrorist shit in India. That's all. Right? But yeah, people like, okay, Western people are just like, Western media is just like, okay, really, man? It's like, oh, we're not going to look anything more into this. Why do we care? So we're just going to make claims and piss off people. That's Western media in general when it comes to India, Pakistan shit.
Arguably saw its development expedited through the use of F-16 schematics provided to China by Israel back in the 1980s. This was after the joint US-Israeli Lavi fighter program fell through, which borrowed heavily from the F-16. Pakistan's J-10CEs, however, represent a generational leap ahead of those original Chinese jets. With a modern active electronically scanned array radar, updated full-glass cockpit, radar-absorbent coatings meant to delay adversary targeting, and more. Pakistan also began taking delivery of these jets recently, with the first batch arriving in 2022. Now, we can't currently say with any real confidence what type of fighter the second Indian loss was, though the logical guess would, of course, be a Rafale, a MiG-29, or a Su-30, all of
Rafale probably, like any common sense of Air Force would tell you there won't just be one Rafale. There will be at least two Rafales. That's how those things work. So yeah, at least two Rafales, if not more. And it makes sense. Again, like, okay, if Su-30s were shot down, Rafales were shot down, it doesn't really matter to India. Right? Rafale is not an indigenous plane that we have to feel ashamed or something, that we're gonna lie. Okay, fine, Rafales are shot down, so what? Right? So India doesn't have any reason to lie. Not India would lie anyway, right? India openly says, like, okay, we have these things, but it's fine. India never boasts that way, all right?
of which are operated by the Indian Air Force. And as the War Zone reported on Wednesday, the Rafale's wreckage weren't the only bits of shrapnel to garner social media attention this week, with images also surfacing Wednesday morning of what sure looks to be the remains of a Chinese-sourced PL-15E export model radar-guided air-to-air missile, the likes of which are known to be carried by Pakistan's J-10s. Now, the debris was found in Punjab, on India's northwest border with Pakistan, and as far as the public is aware, this engagement marks this weapon's first ever combat employment. One image, shared by Twitter user John Ridge, who I would recommend following if you're so inclined, he's well worth it, shows the PL-15E's active electronically scanned array radar, a rather advanced miniaturized seeker that allows for improved target acquisition and tracking, while being more resistant to countermeasures like chaff than most in-service radar-guided missile seekers. Other surfaced images show a portion of the missile's fuselage, complete with serial numbers and a small seeker test port. And by Friday morning, this morning as I record this, images of another nearly intact PL-15 have also surfaced online, though I wasn't able to confirm their authenticity before sitting down to record. These advanced radar-guided weapons don't offer the same extended range of China's domestically used PL-15s, but
Yeah, but in over Punjab, there were no Rafale's operations were in Kashmir, not in Punjab. Punjab thing happened like 2 days later, when they attacked a lot of cities. So I don't know, these missiles can be used to attack ground targets. Is that it? Because there were like drones and missile targets against facilities and like civilian airports and things, which didn't went through. Obviously, air defense system intercepted there. Like there is no major loss. People are like, oh, I saw this explosion video. First of all, most of them are fake. One or two of them were real, but they're not really hitting any real things. Like they were intercepted and exploded somewhere else. 99% were intercepted, right? Well, I think one of the artilleries or missile hit a home in Jammu, because of course it did, right? Why would Pakistan care? Only India have to do surgical things. Pakistan doesn't care.
But nonetheless offer a reported range of around 90 miles or so. As the nations exchanged artillery fire and drone strikes through Thursday, India claimed to have shot down at least 2 of Pakistan's fighters, including an American-sourced F-16 and a Chinese-sourced JF-17. Though, again, at the time of recording this, these claims have not been confirmed. And as
They could have claimed that they shot down J-10s, but they didn't, because they didn't shoot down J-10s, because the Indian military doesn't lie.
Thursday night gave way to Friday morning, this conflict had reportedly extended beyond the confines of the Kashmir region, with both nations exchanging drone strikes, artillery, and small arms fire throughout a growing geographic area. But just as importantly, the media, including social media landscape, has only gotten murkier in the past few days, with competing narratives being advanced by floods of like-minded commenters and both nations issuing statements that directly contradict one another.
Man, you really need to understand, like when this shit was happening, it was at night, at least most of it. Who the fuck is up at 3 and 4 a.m. at night? I'm a vampire. Let's forget about me. I make videos like this. How many of like me exist in India who makes videos for like Western audiences? So how many were awake? Those were bots, man. Those were Chinese bots from Pakistan, and there were some bots from India, I guess. I don't know. They were mostly bots, right? You really need to understand this. Why were like pro-Pakistani bots were overwhelming Indian bots or whatever, Indian people? Even though number would tell you like India has like 5 to 10 whatever times higher population. So this is the shit like, okay, you can't win direct war, so you're gonna win war in social media and just like, oh, see, I'm making noise equal power. So I won because I have power, because I can make more noise on social media. Who gives a fuck? You will just click okay, chat disable comments. What you gonna do then?
One nation will claim a successful strike, the other will claim to have intercepted all the weapons. One nation will claim to have downed a jet, and the other will claim no such event has occurred. And this is why it's so important to rein in the rampant speculation at times like this. No matter how much nerds like me like to talk about it, some people just still refuse to acknowledge the fact that the information landscape that we all occupy online is a war zone. These nations understand the strategic importance of controlling the narrative, both domestically and abroad. Malign actors from other nations recognize this conflict as a strategic opportunity as well, with Western hardware squaring off against Chinese equipment for really the first time in the modern era, and veritable armies of both real and manufactured commenters and content creators are already leveraging this burgeoning conflict to advance their own interests in this digital theater. And one might argue that honestly, I'm no better, as I try to sift through this mountain of competing claims on every social media platform, followed by the equally large mountain of people claiming to have debunked the
Dude, that is no issue if you like try to sift through this, because you're not one of those people who just gonna like point blank lie and shit like that. People like you need to do this, right? If bad elements are the only one who's like having the loudest voice and there are no good elements trying to fight back, bad elements will win. This is how like Facebook issues started. Like in Bangladesh and a lot of places a few years ago, there were riots because of misinformation on Facebook. People like even like grab who's the chairman? I forgot his name. Grab him like, because of you there are riots and wars happening. Yeah, good elements needs to fight back, right? They need to shift through this. This is real. This is not. Let's figure it out. They need to do that. If they don't do that, like yeah, bad elements win.
Previous claims, and then others debunking those debunkers. And if you're wondering why most reputable news outlets have kept their coverage somewhat vague to this point, this is why. Right now, the fog of war is very real, and in the absence of conclusive facts, even the best of us are inclined to fill in the blanks with our own reasoning. And the worst of us are eager for the chance to twist what little we know into something it isn't. So if you're wondering why I decided to punt my F-22 pilot interview video to next Friday so I could stay up all night trying to decipher what's really going on in the air over South Asia, well, I'm just going to put my cards on the table. Yesterday afternoon, I posted a short video on my TikTok telling people to try to hold off on drawing conclusions about how Indian and Pakistani fighter platforms are performing in combat.
Just accept that China's weaponry is more advanced. The author of speech is very as a Chinese. It's always Chinese. I can't understand if these are people who are like motivated, like this is how landscape is in China. Like patriotism means nationalism. We should fight back. Doesn't matter what are these bots. I don't know. But I've noticed that shit a lot. My channel is not that famous, right? Like I barely get a few hundred or few thousand at best. But if I make a Chinese video, like look at those comments. Seriously, next time I make a Chinese video, just look at the comments. I don't understand this. Like your $20 trillion economy, even if it doesn't concern you, like why you have such a thin skin? I don't get it.
Combat until we will actually know anything at all about these engagements. And in the first few hours that video was up, I was flooded by hundreds of comments and dozens of DMs from people making wild claims, alleging evidence that didn't exist, disputing evidence that does, accusing me of being a shill for India and a shill for Pakistan. And
Okay, I'm going to say this one thing again. 12th military, 42nd economy. 5th economy, 4th military. There's not much of comparison. Does Pakistan have better planes because of China? J-10C is better? Yeah, it is. Do they have Saab radars? Of course they have. I'm the first guy to praise Saab. I've been doing that for years. Like whenever I hear Saab, you can see my eyes lit up. I love Saab. So can China have things that are much better than India has? Yeah, but overall, can Pakistan do anything about Pakistan can do anything about India? Fuck no. Does India have 3 squadrons of S-400 with 16 vehicle each? Does India have domestically 3 domestic system different with a proper Iron Dome against all the threats all the way to ICBM? ICBM that Pakistan doesn't even have. Like when you hear 99% were intercepted by India, you shouldn't be surprised because that's the level of shit we have. Right? This is not a joke. Right? Pakistan and India is not the same.
And especially announcing China's all-encompassing technological victory over all things Western. And I want to be clear, Pakistan's Chinese fighters may indeed have outclassed India's French jets. Or maybe India exercised sloppy OPSEC and blew the mission. Or an Indian pilot made a bad judgment call. Or a Pakistani pilot had a very lucky night, or some combination of all.
Sloppy OPSEC makes sense to me. I'm an Indian and saying that. Sloppy OPSEC makes sense to me because India always is pacifist, doctrine. Let's chill out. Proportional response. That's what they did. If Pakistan launches drones at 10 cities, we are going to launch attacks at 10 cities, even though we can launch at 20. Proposal, let's calm down. Let's keep our hands tied. Okay, we're just going to attack these sites. Probably Pakistan's not going to respond aggressively because they didn't do that shit last time. These are the type of preparation that probably fucked Rafales. I'm the first to admit that, right? India has, probably not going to happen. Let's calm down. Let's chill. Let's take a seat back approach. Sometimes it's not good, right? And yeah, bad luck probably. Probably they were told to not attack Pakistan. And when the Pakistan did attack, they didn't have enough time to talk to the command center. Should I fight back? Before they can do that, plane was shot down.
Of these things or none of these things at all. The simple fact of the matter is warfare is a complex, messy, and confusing business. Yeah. And you should know that people are actively working to shape your perceptions of this fight through every means and medium available to them. So I might be the only voice you hear today telling you to take a breath. The conflict unfolding between India and Pakistan isn't a spectator sport. Yeah. Its importance is not tied to.
Do you realize people died? A lot of people died, right? In Pakistan's side, a lot of people died. Indian side, even a lot of people died because Pakistan were constantly shelling mortars indiscriminately. Doesn't matter where they're doing it. In border towns, tens and tens, 20, 30, numbers were much higher. People died. They're just shelling it without even worrying about it. India has to is there a military installation here? If not, then don't mortar it. Don't strike like that. No artillery. Pakistan, fuck it, and artillery at the entire border. That's what was happening.
Chengdu or Dassault's stock prices. And the people fighting and dying right now aren't doing it to prove anyone wrong or right on Twitter. And when you come across creators, commenters, articles, or posts already talking about this conflict in absolutes, I'm telling you that you should be skeptical. Because warfare is messy, and staring at your screen harder won't make the picture any clearer. We have to wait for the smoke to clear. Now, I'm obviously going to stay on top of this story as it unfolds, but until...
Yeah, this is just the only guy who I ever saw in the entire YouTube channel who said in this way. It's only one has enough experience and brain cell to put it this way. Right? This is sandboxx. This is why I respect sandboxx. This is why I react to a lot of his videos. Because I realized that very early when I watched his video, he knows what the fuck he's talking about. Right? He's not saying pro-India or pro-Pakistan. He's just saying everybody calm the fuck down. We don't know shit. Right? So, yeah, one thing I'm going to make clear right now, as I've said before, one thing we can say, people Rafales are great planes, and India somehow lost it, so Indian pilot sucks. Indian pilots constantly go through simulation and simulation war against European and American pilots. None of them ever reported like, oh, Indian pilot sucks in any reports. So that's just bullshit. India constantly have to like, like on the Himalayas and everywhere, constantly have to do these exercises because you can never know. If there is one country on the entire planet who's constantly under pressure, is India against Pakistan and China. That's the level of shit we have to deal with. They're constantly under exercise. They're constantly under work. Somebody says, oh, there's nepotism. What is this, a government arm? There's some office. There's mayor's office. There's nepotism. There's a 250,000 people in Air Force. Nepotism, really? This is the largest democracy in the world. There is a corruption, but not at that level. This is not some monarchy like Napoleon who just puts his cousins and like people in charge. This is not that. That's just stupid. Does Rafale suck? Clearly not. Many evidence in the past many years clearly shows that Rafale is one of the best 4.5 plane there is. Is J-10C awesome? Yeah, it is. Do they have like this PL-15 missiles that is awesome? Yeah, they do. Did they just point blank overpower Rafale? Probably, right? Or was it something like I was saying, like, okay, operational issues, they didn't, anticipate how Pakistan will respond. They didn't have time to collaborate. They were like, hands were tied, were told not to attack Pakistan back. Who the fuck knows?
Real details emerge and are vetted, I want to remind you that there's no shame in the phrase, I don't know yet. And with that ends yet another edition of Air Power from Sandboxx News.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. That's the question, right? And even right now, like, yeah, India did indirectly confirm, like, okay, let's not talk about Rafale shot down, pilots were safe, implying, yeah, of course, Rafales are shot down. Yeah. They didn't say like, oh no, it wasn't shot down. So yeah, I said that at the start when that should happen, right? Yeah, Rafales probably got shot down because why would they not? These are not F-35 F-22s, right? And even then, they weren't given like all clear to take out all the defenses first and prepare to fight a Pakistani jet. They were striking, terrorist training grounds and things. They weren't preparing for like, Pakistani Air Force, even though they knew like there was going to be some hit back. They didn't know at what level it's going to be. They probably didn't anticipate the best plane they have with the best missile they have, and they're going to immediately respond. So there could have been a lot of like, miscalculation like that, right? But if the war did break, if war would have breaked out, and it still could, like we are on the ceasefire, who knows what's going to happen? If war does break out point blank, an actual fight happens, then you'll know like how Rafale plays out. Because at that point, like, okay, anti-radiation missiles, taking out jammers, strategic attacks, preparation, and then you'll see what plane works what. All right, well, I'll see you next time.